All gameplay footage in this video was captured on a Ninja Inferno provided by Atomos, capturing gameplay and video footage in 4K resolution in 10-bit up to 60 frames per second and in HDR. For more information, visit atomos.com. One of the main criticisms of a yearly video game franchise is that the new game doesn't really make any major leaps or bounds over its previous iteration. I would have to say that holds true for Codemasters F1 2018, but that isn't necessarily a bad thing. There is a lot that is carried over from F1 2017 to F1 2018. All the game modes, the championship types, standalone events, and features from F1 2017 find their way into this new game. But F1 2017 was pretty well received, so for the most part that is a good thing. However, it does go a bit too far in certain areas. For example, the driver avatars in F1 2018 are exactly the same as they were in last year's game. The only difference is the addition of F1 2017 esports champion Brandon Lay, which is kind of cool, but when that's the only new addition to the avatars, it kind of falls flat. Also, since the avatars are pretty much the same, that means F1 2018 still has the egregious gender imbalance within the avatars. Out of the 45 avatars available, only 8 of them are female. To their credit, in an exclusive interview I did with Codemasters game director Lee Mather, he did acknowledge this and said the reason the avatars were not updated is that the team simply had too much work in other areas to update the avatars. He did say that they will work to update new avatars and add more female avatars in F1 2019. While that's good news, I'd rather Codemaster just do an avatar editor, as I'm not a big fan of pre-made avatars in general. Beyond that, the classic F1 cars are back as well. Specifically, 12 classic cars from F1 2017 return in this game, with the addition of 6 more classics from the 70s and 80s, including James Hunt's 1972 McLaren M23D and Niki Lauda's 1976 Ferrari 312 T2. The 2009 Braun GP car as well as the 2003 Williams F25 will be available as well for anyone who pre-orders the physical or digital Day 1 Headline Edition copies of F1 2018. Both of those cars will be made available as paid DLC 60 days after launch for everyone else. Another feature that returns is the research and development tree, but this time it's more visually simplified. You don't see all of the R&D paths right away. Instead, more is revealed as others are completed. This was probably done to keep things from being too overwhelming for those who haven't played a simulator this deep before. I think this was a good move. Anyway, while it's true that there are many things in F1 2018 that are carried over from the last game, it still has a fair share of new features, though some of the most significant new features are under the surface. Namely, the car simulation, handling, suspension physics, and chassis physics have all been completely revamped using real-world F1 data plugged into Codemasters' bespoke Ego game engine. There is a significant difference in the way cars handle in this game versus last year, and it's all for the better. Even though I played exclusively with a control pad, thanks to the improved feedback, I can feel the tires gripping and find grooves when I needed to. Since we're talking about tires, one of the other new features is the tire carcass temperature readout within the multifunction display. Now you can actively monitor your tires while driving to make sure they're within their optimal temperature range. Speaking of the multifunction display, or MFD, I'm still not a huge fan of it, though they did improve it by making it much easier to read. However, I still don't like the fact that if you're playing the game with a control pad, you have to take your thumb off the left stick, which is basically the steering wheel, to use the D-pad to navigate the MFD, while also taking eyes off the road to read it so that you don't accidentally make changes to the wrong thing. While I completely respect the argument that trying to make adjustments on the MFD while racing adds to the challenge factor of driving an F1 car, to me personally I find it cumbersome. I'm sure it's not nearly as tricky when using a steering wheel though. I just wish it was a little bit more intuitive for control pad users. As usual, all the tracks from the current season are in F1 2018, which adds up to 21 total, with the return of Hockenheim Ring and the addition of the Paul Ricard circuit for the French Grand Prix. Though more significant than the tracks are all of the new Halo-equipped 2018 F1 cars. I was really curious as to how Codemasters would handle the Halo system in the game, since they are all about keeping things authentic as possible, but also recognize that some things, as real as they are, may be an annoyance to the average player. So while the Halo is in the game and will obstruct your view in cockpit mode, the game allows players to remove the center post of the Halo to improve visibility, which I think is a reasonable compromise. My only criticism of it is that removing the center post is an option deep in the menus. I really wish it could have been a one-button function that could be done on the fly while playing. When it comes to visuals, F1 2018 is a step up. The colors are much brighter, the textures and material surfaces look sharper and are much more detailed. Also, despite the fact that it still runs at 60 frames per second just like before, the animations somehow seem much smoother. It also does not have the severe screen tearing that plagued F1 2017. Though I think my favorite visual improvement are the CG animated humans that your avatar interacts with. They look much better than before, though they still aren't very expressive. This actually brings me to one of the other new aspects of F1 2018, and that's interacting with the press in the new career mode. Now when you finish practice, qualifying, and races, you'll be approached in the paddock by a reporter looking to get sound bites. The interesting thing about this is that you choose your answers, and the answers you choose will actually have an effect on your career, as your responses will change how your team and other teams see you. This changes your reputation, which has a direct effect on negotiating your contract with teams. Contract negotiations are important because the higher your personal worth, the better terms you can command, like getting priority with development of new parts and shortening development time of those said parts. The interview even adds a sense of pressure, as you only have about 10 seconds to read each response and choose the one that you want to give. Adding even more depth is the fact that different teams expect you to carry yourself in a different way. For example, frontrunner teams like Mercedes GP would rather you choose more modest, sportsman-like answers, while a mid-pack team like Haas F1 wants you to bring more media buzz to the team by being boastful and more of a showman in interviews. I really like this new feature as it gives more weight to the feeling of being a real F1 driver. In the end, that's what Codemasters F1 games are all about, doing as much as possible to make players feel like they're getting the true F1 experience. On the whole, I think F1 2018 delivers on that promise and then some. Sure, it has a few flaws, but altogether, this is an incredibly deep, satisfying game. If you're an F1 fan, racing sim fan, and or a fan of the previous Codemasters F1 games, I highly recommend picking up F1 2018. Even if you're a beginner to racing sims like this, I still suggest getting this game if you're up for the challenge. It will be a little daunting at first, but it will get extremely rewarding once you find your groove. To sum things up, here are the pros and cons. Thanks for watching this review of F1 2018. If you found it useful, please give this video a thumbs up, and if you want to see more, consider subscribing to this channel. If you do subscribe, don't forget to hit the notification bell so you know right away when a new video goes up.